Alright, boils and ghouls, back to Suspiria mood. Two short, spoiler-free reviews back to back. This is going to be the first one, and, in my opinion, the much superior film compared to the next one we'll have out for M. Night Shyamalan's Trap. We'll get there. But Horror in the High Desert 3 Firewatch. I've been a big fan of this series since the first movie. This is directed and written again by Dutch. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your last name right. Dutch Marich? It's Marek or Marich? Let me know. But the first film was very creepy, had a lot of atmosphere, and for people who haven't seen these movies, they are in the found footage subgenre, and there are elements of found footage for sure. But these films are more in the vein of the fake documentary, mockumentary format, like Lake Mungo, which I adore that film. The first Hell House LLC, The Tunnel. You can go on and on. It's been done before. But there's a few things in this whole series that really draw me to it. And one is Mysteries in the Desert. Just that alone. Because the desert's a scary fucking place. And there are people that go missing all the time. Now, for those who haven't seen the first two movies in this series, the first film follows this investigation, faux documentary style, into the disappearance of Gary Hinge, who was a survivalist, expert hiker. So he would go on these expeditions into the desert all by himself, and he did this all the time until he ended up going missing, which prompted this whole investigation to find Gary Hinge. Then we got the second film, Minerva, which kind of veered away from the main mystery of what happened to Gary Hinge and took us on a little detour that links into the disappearance of Gary with the murder of this woman Minerva, as well as this other girl who went missing as well. So I love the first film. The second film, I feel, is a little bit of a decline in quality, but not so much now that I've seen Firewatch, the third one, because this kind of all ties it back together, and I knew that was going to happen from when Minerva dropped and watching Minerva. I remember I talked to Dutch, the director, and told me that he was doing parts 3 and 4 simultaneously. So Horror in the High Desert 4 is done. So I don't know how much longer we're going to have to wait for more answers to this ongoing mystery. And I don't want to get too much into spoilers or anything for this movie because I will be having Susie Block, the great actress who plays the journalist Gail in this series, on the 7th next week. So I have questions and theories I want to save for that. I'm also talking with Dutch of having him on, so I want to save some stuff for that also. But here in Firewatch, it continues more down the Gary Hinge part of the mystery, the main part of this whole series. We get mentions to Minerva and the events that happened that we see in that film, but it really focuses on Gary Hinge's disappearance more so than the second film. And we have Oscar Mendoza, who is the main character of this one, who had a line at the end of Minerva saying that he knows something that everyone else doesn't, that he had some type of information that might help him find Gary's last whereabouts, where he disappeared, what happened to him. And we follow his investigation until he ends up going missing. And we start to get a little bit of a better idea of what's going on in the desert of Nevada. Now, one reason this series now really hits well for me, it reminds me of a few actual conspiracies and disappearances in the desert. Very specifically, it reminds me of, has anyone ever heard of the M Cave in the Mojave Desert. And there was a guy, Kenny Veach, and he found this cave. He was also went out on excursions all the time, survivalist, knew what he was doing in the desert. Very similar to Gary's character here. So that's something I want to ask Dutch when I get you on here sometime. Was any of that or real conspiracies influences on the story here in these films? But if you haven't heard about the M Cave, there was a cave that was shaped like the capital letter M that this man Kenny Veach found, and he started getting just nauseous. His body was vibrating, and it kept on vibrating, so he decided, fuck this, and he left, didn't go in the cave. And then he posted about it. This was like a decade plus ago, and he actually went back and documented on his YouTube channel him looking for this cave again. And then he ended up disappearing and was never heard from again. And then it became a huge internet sensation and conspiracy that people were actually going out there looking for this M Cave and looking for Kenny Veach. So a lot of this premise for this series, especially the main thing of Gary Hinge's disappearance, it really reminds me of certain actual conspiracies like the M Cave story. And that adds to both the creepiness of these movies and just the theorizing. I have so many theories about what's going on actually in this franchise. But I was pissed because I couldn't see this movie when it dropped on Prime. I was trying to get into my Prime the whole time I was upstate with my daughter. Kept giving me an error message. I couldn't see it. And I was finally able to fix it and see the movie last night. And I loved it. I thought it was great, just like the last two movies. I think I liked it better than Minerva. And there are some definite creepy and very atmospheric sequences in this movie, especially near the end, which is very similar to the first film. Now, still, after 3 movies, they haven't explained or shown, fully what these things are that are kidnapping and murdering and doing God knows what to all these people that go missing in the desert. Now, I have my theories, as I said. I think it's very heavily implied that either there's some type of, desert dweller, who knows, cannibals. It reminds me of The Hills Have Eyes. And I've said that since the first movie. It reminds me of something out of The Hills Have Eyes. Were these people... Now, in this movie, interesting enough, they say it a few times. Different characters comment on things that they've seen and say that they don't move like people. And then there's a line, I don't want to spoil too much, but at the end, there's a line again that kind of reinforces that these things aren't human. So I don't know how that works with my whole theory on them being like mutated cannibals or something. They could also be aliens. I'm leaning towards, and I'm curious to see, since 4 is finished. And I don't know how many Dutch plans on going with this series, but at this point, I think you still got a lot of room to explore more of the story, even with a 4th film already made. I could see this going to a 5th film, but I would like to see it like a conspiracy by the government. That the government knows these things exist, and maybe it was some type of testing gone wrong, or some type of government experiment, and these creatures, or whatever the hell they are, as I said, we don't know yet, and they know what's going on in the desert here. And as the movies go on, I'm sure they could figure out a way to, not retcon, but link backwards to previous evidence of certain aspects of the mystery that we've seen in these movies so far, and make it look like, yeah, well, that was disinformation, or that was planted. This was from the government, the whole government cover up. That's where I'm kind of hoping this goes, but I have complete faith in this point in Dutch and everybody working on these movies that whatever conclusion we'll finally get to, I think I'm going to enjoy the hell out of whatever it is. So if you guys haven't seen any of these movies, definitely check out the first one and see how it works for you. Even if you're not a found footage fan, as I said earlier, it's not straight found footage. It's more of that fake documentary style. So I know some people who like movies like that, but hate found footage. So also, if you're a huge fan of mysteries, conspiracies, people missing in the desert, there's literally a bunch of stuff in this franchise that a lot of people who might not be into these type of movies can find some enjoyment and entertainment out of, for sure. So Horror in the High Desert 3 Firewatch, great. Like, keep it coming, Dutch. Can't wait to have Susie Block on next Wednesday. We will be talking this whole series as much as she can, because I know we can't talk about 4. And like I said, talking with Dutch about scheduling to get him on. But yeah, that's all I really have to say. Great watch, great experience, great addition to this growing franchise. And I can't wait for part 4. But alright, guys. Next, M. Night Shyamalan's crap from this year. See you then.